Hey guys, glad you could make it. Tonight we are journeying to a world of stone castles and chivalrous knights, but we won't be visiting the throne room or the tournament grounds. Instead, we're heading to the edge of town, to a place people pretend doesn't exist, to look at the grim, high-stakes career of the medieval executioner. We have this image of a hulking hooded figure, a silent brute who just swings an axe. But the brutal reality is that the executioner was a highly skilled, often hereditary specialist, a combination of surgeon, torturer and social pariah, whose life was a constant lonely tightrope walk between civic duty and universal revulsion. If these stories from the past help you find your rest in the present, a simple like or a subscribe is always deeply appreciated. It lets me know that we're on the right path together. And as always, it's fascinating to see our global community gather, so be sure to tell us where you're listening from as you settle in for the night. Alright, it's time to let the modern world fade away. Find your most comfortable position, let your shoulders relax, and take a slow, deep breath. Feel the tension leave your body as you exhale. Good. The year is 1348. The city is a bustling, walled hub in the heart of the Holy Roman Empire. And for you, life and death are not abstract concepts. They are the family business. You were born on the wrong side of the wall, not literally outside the city's protection, but just inside it, in a corner so undesirable that no one else would have it. Your home is a sturdy but grim stone house, pressed against the cold, damp city wall on one side and overlooking the tanner's pits on the other. This is no accident. Your father is the city's executioner. It's Scharfrichter, and this is where you belong. Close enough to serve the law, but far enough away that your neighbours can pretend you don't exist. Your earliest memories are not of lullabies, but of the rhythmic thump, thump, thump of your father's tools in his workshop, and the constant, acrid smell of curing leather, and something vaguely metallic that clings to every piece of cloth in your home. Your childhood is a lesson in invisibility. When your mother takes you to the market, a strange and silent bubble forms around you. People don't meet your eyes. They flatten themselves against stalls to let you pass, their faces a mask of piety and fear. The baker will sell you bread, but he won't take the coins from your mother's hand. She must place them on the counter, and he will sweep them into a separate box, as if your very touch carries a stain. You learn that you are untouchable. The other children, in their cruel, simple way, have a name for you. You are a child of the blood master, a son of the man who wields the justice sword. There are no playmates who come to your door. The yard behind your house, filled with strange wooden implements and coils of rope, is your only playground. Your existence is a paradox. Your father is an official of the court, a necessary cog in the wheel of justice. He is granted a house, a small but steady salary from the city council, and a strange set of legal privileges. He is, for example, allowed to take a handful of produce from any market stall without paying, a practice known as greifen, or the grasp. It is not a privilege born of respect, but of fear. It is easier to let the executioner take a cabbage than to argue with him. It is a form of tax paid not to the crown, but to the man who embodies its final, terrifying authority. You see the resentment in the farmer's eyes, the quiet curse they mutter as your father walks away. You are provided for, but you are despised. You do not go to the church school with the other boys. Your education happens at home, at your father's side. He teaches you to read and write, a rare skill, but the texts are not tales of saints or heroes. They are city ordinances, legal decrees, and anatomical charts he has painstakingly copied himself. He shows you the human body not as a creation of God, but as a machine of sinew and bone, a machine that can be expertly and efficiently broken. He is a quiet, grim man, his face set in permanent lines of concentration. The work has worn grooves into his soul. You see the weight he carries, and you know, with the chilling certainty of a child, that this weight will one day be yours. This is not a job you apply for. It is an inheritance, a bloodline, a curse that is passed from father to son. You are not just learning a trade, you are being forged into a tool, just like the cold, sharp steel that hangs on the workshop wall. Your formal training begins not with a sword, but with a carcass. Your father, like many executioners, holds several jobs, all of them related to the business of death. He is the city's knacker, responsible for disposing of dead or diseased livestock. This is your first classroom. At the age of 10, you are handed a set of flensing knives and taught how to strip the hide from a dead horse. The stench is overwhelming, a thick, sweet and foul miasma that sticks to the back of your throat. Your father watches you, his eyes missing nothing. Feel for the space between the muscle and the skin. He instructs, his voice a low rumble. Let the knife do the work. A dull blade is more dangerous than a sharp one. Remember that this is your first lesson in anatomy. You learn the architecture of the body, the way joints connect, the location of major arteries, the difference in texture between tendon and fat. It is a grotesque and bloody education, but a necessary one. From animals, you graduate to the theoretical study of men. In the long winter evenings, by the flickering light of a tallow lamp, your father unrolls his precious drawings. He quizzes you relentlessly. The third vertebra from the top, he'll say, pointing with a calloused finger, the axis. A blow here, with the right force, severs the cord cleanly. Too high you hit the skull. Too low you get into the shoulder. Where do you aim? You recite the answer, the words feeling strange and heavy in your young mouth. He teaches you about the breaking wheel, not as an instrument of blind rage, but as a tool of precise, calculated agony. You strike the limbs here and here. He demonstrates on the chart. To break the bones, without tearing the flesh. The law demands they die on the wheel, not from the first blow. It is an art. Then comes the practice. In the secluded yard behind your house, he has a series of posts and sandbags. You start with the ropes. For hours, you practice knots. The hangman's knot, with its 13 coils, though your father dismisses that as superstition, must be perfect. It has to tighten smoothly, without catching, breaking the neck instantly. A botched hanging, where the condemned strangles slowly, is a disgrace. It can turn the crowd from a jeering mob into a rioting one, and their anger is often directed at the executioner. You practice until your fingers are raw, until you can tie the knot in the dark, by feel alone. You learn about body weight, the length of the drop, the physics of a clean death. It is a chilling science. Finally, you are allowed to touch the sword. It is not the crude, heavy axe of popular imagination. It is the Richtschwert, the executioner's sword, a long, heavy, two-handed blade with a squared-off tip, as it is not meant for stabbing. It is a tool of immense weight and perfect balance. Your father makes you hold it, getting used to its heft. Your arms ache. He teaches you the stance, the pivot of the hips, the arc of the swing. Your targets are cabbages and pumpkins balanced on posts, meant to simulate a kneeling human neck. He dips the vegetable in red dye. One swing, he says, his voice cold. Always one swing. The family pays extra for a clean cut. The city demands it. Your honour demands it. You swing again and again. You miss, sending the pumpkin flying. You strike too low, cleaving the post. Slowly, over years, your muscles learn the motion. The swing becomes fluid, powerful, precise. You are learning to be a master of your craft, a craft that no one in their right mind would ever want to master. The day you have been dreading for years arrives on a grey, drizzling morning. You are 16. Your father is unwell. A racking cough has settled deep in his chest, and the city council is impatient. A wool merchant, caught using false weights for the third time, has been sentenced to the gallows. The sentence must be carried out. Your father looks at you, his eyes clouded with fever and something else. Regret, perhaps. "You are ready," he says, though it sounds more like a judgment than a vote of confidence. He instructs you on the final preparations, his voice a hoarse whisper. You are not just the executioner. You are the stage manager for this grim theatre. You walk to the city jail, the executioner's sword sheathed on your back, its weight a cold, heavy reminder of your duty. You wear a distinctive garb, not a black hood. That's a fantasy, but a specific colour, perhaps a grim grey or a startling red, that marks you as separate from the common folk. You feel 100 pairs of eyes on you as you cross the main square. The whispers are like the rustling of dry leaves. You collect the condemned man. He is a small, weeping fellow, his face a mess of terror and disbelief. Part of your job, your father taught you, is to manage the prisoner. You must be firm but not cruel. You offer him a sip of wine, the traditional last drink. It is a small, hollow gesture of humanity in a profoundly inhuman process. You lead the procession to the gallows, a permanent ugly fixture on a small hill just outside the city gates. A crowd has already gathered. This is a form of public entertainment, a moral lesson, and a raw display of the law's power, all rolled into one. They jeer and throw rotten vegetables at the merchant. They are not jeering at you. For now, you lead the man up the wooden steps of the scaffold. The wood is slick with rain. You can feel the vibration of the crowd's energy through the soles of your boots. Your hands feel clumsy, your fingers thick and stupid as you bind the man's hands and feet. He is mumbling a prayer, his body shaking uncontrollably. Now comes the critical part. You take the rope, your rope, the one you have practiced with 1,000 times. You place the noose over his head. You adjust the knot, making sure it sits just so, behind the left ear. This is the secret to a swift, clean death. The priest finishes his prayers. The crowd grows quiet, a hungry, expectant silence. You look not at the man's face, but at a point on the horizon, just as your father taught you. Detach yourself, his voice echoes in your mind. You are not a man. You are an instrument of the law. You pull the bolt. The trapdoor crashes open. There is a sudden, sharp crack. The rope jerks taut. The body convulses once, then hangs still. It is done. A wave of nausea washes over you. You stand there in the cold rain, the silent, limp figure swaying gently beside you. The crowd murmurs, satisfied. They begin to disperse, already talking of their midday meal. You have performed your duty. You have officially joined the family business. And a small, vital part of you has just died on that scaffold. Your workshop is a place of terrible order. To an outsider, it is a chamber of horrors. To you, it is a professional space, as meticulously organized as a master carpenter's. This is where you spend the quiet hours between public duties, maintaining the tools that define your existence. Each item has its place, its purpose, its own grim maintenance schedule. Hanging on a velvet-lined rack is the pride of your trade, the justice sword. You take it down, its weight familiar in your hands. The steel is of the finest quality, purchased at great expense from swordsmiths in Solingen. Your father's mark, and his father's before him, is etched near the hilt. You spend hours polishing it, removing any hint of rust or tarnish. Then you sharpen it. This is a delicate, meditative process, using a series of whetstones, from coarse to fine. The edge must be flawless, capable of shearing through flesh and bone without catching. A nick in the blade could cause it to deflect, resulting in a horrific botched execution. The sword is not just a tool, it is the emblem of your skill and your family's grim honour. In the corner stands the wheel. It's a heavy, iron-rimmed cartwheel, innocent enough in appearance. But you know its true purpose. Your task is not just to maintain the wheel itself, but the various mallets and iron bars used with it. You check them for splinters, for cracks. The application of force must be precise. The law dictates a specific number of punishments, blows to be delivered before the coup de grace. You are the technician of this prolonged ordeal. Nearby are the branding irons, their tips forged into the shapes of letters. A T for thief, an M for murderer. Before each use, you must clean them of any charred residue and ensure the designs are clear. A smudged brand is an unprofessional mark. It's a strange kind of quality control for an act of state-sanctioned mutilation. Coils of rope of varying thicknesses hang from pegs on the wall. You inspect them constantly, checking for fraying or weakness. A rope that snaps during a hanging is the ultimate failure, a sign of incompetence that could cost you your job, or even your life if the crowd turns violent. You treat the ropes with tallow and wax to keep them supple and strong. There is smaller, more specialized tools as well. Thumb screws that must be oiled to turn smoothly. Pincers of various sizes, their jaws kept clean and sharp. Each one represents a different paragraph in the city's penal code, a different flavor of legally mandated suffering. It's a bit like being the world's most sinister librarian, where every book is a method of pain, and you are responsible for keeping the collection in pristine condition. The most mundane, yet most important items are the black cloths and leather bags. After a beheading, it is your duty to handle the remains with a strange sort of decorum. The head and body must be collected. Sometimes they are to be displayed on spikes on the city gates as a warning. Other times, the family can pay a fee to have them returned for a Christian burial. This is another of your side businesses. You are the sole administrator of these final, grim transactions. You are the beginning and the end of the legal process. You are the one who cleans up the state's bloody messes, meticulously wiping down your tools, readying them for the next time justice needs to be not just done, but seen to be done in the most terrifying way imaginable. The days between executions are not idle. They are filled with the other, less spectacular duties of your station. The city doesn't pay you enough to sit and wait for a sentence to be passed. Your life is a catalogue of the unclean. This morning's task is to clear the carcass of a cow that has fallen into a ditch and died. The butcher won't touch it. The animal wasn't properly bled. The tanner only wants the hide. The rest is your problem. You and your younger apprentice, your own son, now learning the trade, hitch up the cart. The work is heavy and foul. You must haul the bloated carcass from the mud, the smell of decay thick in the humid air. You will transport it to the knacker's yard, your yard, where you will boil it down for tallow and dispose of the rest. This is your reality. You are the city's waste management system for the dead. Another part of your work is surprisingly medical. Because of your detailed practical knowledge of anatomy, people come to you in secret. Not for a friendly chat, but for help. You are a bone setter, a farmer with a dislocated shoulder, a child with a broken arm. They come to your back door after dusk. The city's university-trained physician is too expensive, his methods too theoretical. You, on the other hand, know exactly how the body fits together. You work with a rough, practical skill, yanking a joint back into place with a sickening pop, splinting a fracture with practiced efficiency. They pay you in chickens or a small bag of grain. They thank you with their eyes, but never with a handshake. Your hands, which can heal a break, are the same hands that can cause one on the rack. The irony is not lost on you. You are also, in a way, a dispenser of a different kind of medicine. The folk beliefs surrounding your profession are powerful. A chip of wood from the gallows is considered a cure for toothache. A touch from the hand of a hanged man is believed to ward off disease. And the poor sinner's fat, the rendered human fat from the bodies of the executed, is a highly sought after, if macabre, ingredient in folk remedies. You control the supply of these grim relics. It is another source of income, another layer to your strange and isolated existence. You are a monster to be feared, but also a source of dark magic to be cautiously sought out. You are both poison and cure. The deepest wound of your life, however, is the profound social isolation. You are married, your wife also from an executioner's family, as no other would have her, and you have children. You love them fiercely, but you know you have condemned them to the same life. When you walk into a tavern for a rare mug of ale, the room falls silent. A space clears around you at the bar. The tavern keeper serves you, but he will wash the mug 3 times after you leave. You have no friends, only clients and officials. Your conversations are about death, disease, and the law. You sit alone, nursing your drink, the hum of conversation slowly resuming around you, but never including you. You are a ghost in your own city, a man everyone sees, but no one truly knows. Today is different. The usual grim routine of your work has been replaced by a sense of grand, terrible theatre. A local baron, found guilty of treason against the Duke, is to be beheaded in the main castle courtyard. This is not a common hanging for a common criminal. This is justice as spectacle, a political statement written in blood. The pressure on you is immense. For weeks, the city has been buzzing with the news. The scaffold, much larger and more elaborate than the common gallows, has been erected in the centre of the courtyard. It is draped in black cloth. Your fee for this day's work is more than you earn in 6 months, but the risks are proportionally higher. A clean single-stroke execution of a nobleman is the pinnacle of your craft. A mistake would be catastrophic, an insult to the condemned's family, an embarrassment to the Duke, and a potential death sentence for you. You have spent the entire previous day preparing. You have selected your finest sword, not the workhorse blade, but a lighter, perfectly balanced one reserved for such occasions. You have sharpened it to a razor's edge, testing it on a single strand of hair, which it severs effortlessly. You have also prepared your attire. For this, you will wear the ceremonial garb of your office, a fine tailored tunic of deep crimson, embroidered with the city's crest. You are not a brutish headsman today. You are the official sword of the state, an agent of ducal power. You must look the part. You have not slept. You have spent the night in quiet meditation, focusing your mind, visualizing the perfect swing, banishing all thoughts of failure. The courtyard is packed. Nobles and wealthy merchants look down from the castle ramparts. The common folk are a great swaying mass held back by city guards. When you walk onto the scaffold, a hush falls over the crowd. You feel like an actor stepping onto a stage. You perform your final checks, ensuring the block is steady, the ground around it clear of any debris that might cause you to slip. The Baron is led out. He is dressed in fine clothes, his face pale but composed. He is allowed a final speech, a rambling declaration of his innocence and his loyalty to God. You stand patiently, sword resting on your shoulder, your face an impassive mask. You cannot afford emotion. You cannot afford distraction. The Baron finishes. He kneels, removes his fine collar, and places his head on the block. He says a final prayer. This is the moment. Your entire life, your father's training, your years of practice, have all led to this single instant. The crowd holds its breath. You step forward. You plant your feet. You raise the great sword. It feels light, an extension of your own arms. You see the precise spot, the space between the vertebrae you know so well. For a fraction of a second, the world disappears. There is only you, the sword, and the target. You swing. The blade sings through the air, a high, thin whisper. There is a soft, wet thud. It is done. A single, perfect stroke. The crowd lets out a collective gasp, a sound of horror and awe. You have not failed. You have proven your mastery. You are the finest and the most terrible craftsman in the city. Not all your work is so final. Sometimes the law does not want a life. It wants a confession. You are not only the city's executioner, but also its official questioner. When a suspected heretic or a conspirator is arrested, and they refuse to cooperate, they are brought to you. Your other office is a small, windowless room in the deepest cellar of the city's main tower. It is always cold, the stone walls weeping with a constant dampness that no fire can ever truly banish. The only furniture is a heavy wooden table, a few stools, and the instruments. The rack, the strappado ropes, the iron boot. They wait in the shadows, silent and patient. A man is brought to you today, a merchant accused of plotting against the guild masters. 2 city magistrates and a clerk are present. They are here to observe, to record, and to maintain the veneer of legality. This is not mindless brutality. It is a formal legal procedure known as the question. There are strict rules. You are not allowed to shed blood, to cause permanent maiming, or to kill the subject. At least, not intentionally. The goal is not to punish, but to persuade the truth to come out. It is a grotesque legal fiction, and you are its primary practitioner. You are expected to be a detached medical expert in the application of pain. The lead magistrate reads the charges. The merchant, defiant, denies everything. The magistrate nods to you. You begin with the mildest form of persuasion. The thumb screws. You apply the device. Your movements calm and methodical. You are not angry. You are not cruel. You are a craftsman at work. You turn the screw slowly, speaking in a low, monotone voice. The magistrate has asked you about the meeting on the 3rd of May. It would be wise to remember you are watching his eyes, his breathing, the tension in his shoulders. You are reading his body as a scholar reads a book. This is the art of your work, applying just enough pressure to break the will, but not the body. It's a bit like being a musician tuning a lute, except the instrument is a human being, and the desired note is a scream of confession. The merchant is stubborn. You proceed to the next stage, the strappado. You tie his hands behind his back and attach the rope, which runs through a pulley on the ceiling. With the help of your apprentice, you hoist him up, dislocating his shoulders with an awful tearing sound. The clerk records the merchant's cries. The magistrate repeats his questions. This is the part of your job you hate the most. A beheading is clean, final. This is a slow, ugly descent into despair. You are not ending a life. You are systematically dismantling a man's humanity piece by painful piece. You are no longer just an instrument of the law's finality, but of its cruel, calculating curiosity. You feel a cold hollowness inside you. You are the city's confessor, wringing out sins with iron and rope, and with every session, a little more of your own soul feels crushed and broken. You are wealthy by the standards of a common craftsman. Your combined roles as executioner, knacker, bone setter, and relic seller provide a substantial income. Your house is large, your table is always full, and you can afford fine clothes for your wife and children. But your wealth is a curse. It is the heaviest coin you carry. Every florin, every groschen is tainted by its source. It is money paid for ending a life, for breaking a body, for disposing of the dead. It is money that no one else in the city wants to touch. When you pay the butcher for a joint of pork, he will not give you change from his own purse. He keeps a separate bag for your coins, the Blutgeld, the blood money. He believes it is unclean, that it will bring a curse upon his own business if it mixes with the honest earnings of others. This stain extends to your entire family. Your wife endures the silent judgment of the other women at the well. They give her a wide berth, whispering behind their hands. Your son, your apprentice, is growing into a hard, silent young man. He is learning the trade, but he is also learning the loneliness that comes with it. You see him watching the other boys his age, laughing as they walk to the tavern, and you see the longing in his eyes. He will never have that. He will have wealth. He will have a strange and powerful position, but he will never have a friend. You have given him a comfortable life and a secure future, but you have also locked him in the same gilded cage that has confined you. The paradox of your existence is never clearer than during the city's festivals. You are required to attend, to march in the great processions with the other guild masters and city officials. You wear your finest crimson tunic, the symbol of your office. You are a man of status. Yet you walk alone. A clear space of several feet separates you from the bakers in front and the masons behind. The crowd cheers for the other guilds, but falls silent as you pass. They look at you with a mixture of fear and morbid fascination. You are a necessary part of their world, the ultimate guarantor of their safety and order, but you are not, and can never be, one of them. At night, you sit in your stone house, the coins from your day's work spread on the table. You count them, stack them. They feel cold to the touch. This is the price of your skill, the price of your family's honor. You have traded community for security, acceptance for authority. You provide the city with the one thing it cannot provide for itself, the clean, professional, and orderly application of its own most brutal laws. In return, the city provides you with everything you need to live, and with a loneliness so profound it feels like a physical presence in the room, a silent, unwelcome guest at your well-laden table. The years have been both kind and cruel. Your hair is white, your back is a constant dull ache from a lifetime of heavy lifting and the awkward posture of your trade. Your hands, once strong and steady, are now gnarled with arthritis, the joints swollen. The great justice sword feels heavier than it used to. You are the old master now, the Scharfrichter, who has served the city for over 4 decades. You have seen dukes and bishops come and go. You have outlived them all. Your son now handles most of the daily work. He is strong, skilled, and has the same grim professional demeanor that your father instilled in you. The wheel turns. The bloodline continues. You sit in your workshop, the place where you have spent most of your life. The air is still thick with the smells of metal, oil, and something older, something you can never quite wash away. You run a thumb over the cool, smooth steel of a branding iron. You think of the hundreds of lives you have ended. Thieves, murderers, traitors, heretics. each one a story, a moment of terror and finality that is seared into your memory. You were taught to detach, to become an instrument, but you were never truly made of stone. You remember the face of the young woman hanged for infanticide, her eyes filled with a despair so deep it felt like an ocean. You remember the defiant stare of the political rebel on the wheel, who cursed the Duke with his final breath. They are all ghosts, living quietly in the corners of your mind. You have been a monster in the eyes of your neighbours, a necessary evil. But you have also been a force for order. Your presence, the fear you embody, has deterred countless crimes. You have been the city's dark shepherd, keeping the flock in line with the threat of your terrible crook. You have upheld the law, in all its cruelty and all its strange, brutal majesty. You have been an artist of death, a technician of pain, a healer of bones, a purveyor of grim magic. You have been utterly alone, yet intimately connected to the deepest fears and secrets of every person in the city. Your son enters the workshop. He's carrying the great sword. "It needs sharpening," he says, his voice quiet. You nod, and watch as he takes it to the whetstones, his movements a mirror of your own from so many years ago. You see the concentration in his face, the weight of the office already settling onto his young shoulders. The legacy is safe. You have done your duty. You have carried the heavy, blood-stained honour of your family through another generation. You are not a hero. You are not a villain. You are the executioner, a living symbol of the brutal, unyielding truth that holds the medieval world together. That for society to live, some men must be tasked with the art of making others die. And your work is finally done. Tonight, we're journeying back to the cradle of civilization, to the sun-scorched plains of ancient Mesopotamia. We're here to look at one of the most iconic and mysterious structures of the ancient world, the great Ziggurat of Ur. We see the pictures of this magnificent man-made mountain, a stairway to the heavens for forgotten gods, and we imagine a world of serene priests and grand ceremonies. But the brutal reality is that this colossal structure was the product of a different kind of worship. The worship of state power, built on a foundation of endless bureaucracy, and cemented together with the sweat, monotony, and back-breaking labour of thousands of people whose names we will never know. The year is 2100 BC. The third dynasty of Ur is at the absolute height of its power. You are a farmer, your world is flat, and the king has just decided to build a mountain. Your world is made of mud and water. You live in a small village of reed and mud brick houses, a short walk from the life-giving waters of the Euphrates River. Your life is governed by the two great rhythms, the rhythm of the river's flood and the rhythm of the barley harvest. The harvest has just ended. The last of the golden grain has been collected, threshed, and sent as tribute to the great city-state of Ur. This is the time of year when the river recedes, the ground hardens, and a different kind of work begins. You sit in the cool of the evening, mending a fishing net, when you hear the sound of the royal official's barge approaching. A scribe, dressed in clean fringed linen that marks him as a man of the city, stands on the riverbank. He unrolls no parchment, paper is a distant dream, but he holds up a baked clay tablet, covered in the dense, wedge-shaped marks of cuneiform. He doesn't need to read it. He has the decree memorized. The great king, Ur-Nammu, he announces, has been commanded by Nana, the moon god and patron deity of Ur, to build him a new house. A great house. A house whose foundations will be rooted in the heart of the earth and whose peak will scrape the heavens. It is a divine project, and it requires divine effort. The scribe's eyes, cold and impersonal, sweep across the assembled men of your village. Your name is called. Along with a dozen others, you have been conscripted. For the next 3 months, until the season of planting begins again, you will not be a farmer. You will be a builder for the king. There is no discussion. This is not an invitation. It is a tax, paid not in grain, but in muscle and time. It is presented as a great religious honour, a chance to serve the gods. But as you look at the resigned faces of your fellow villagers, it feels less like a blessing and more like a sentence. Your wife packs you a small bag with barley cakes, a piece of dried fish, and a water skin. There is a quiet fear in her eyes. The great works of the king are known to be dangerous. Men get injured. Disease spreads quickly in the crowded workers' camps. You are a strong man, your body hardened by years of working the fields. But this is a different kind of labour. You join the line of conscripts, a long, shuffling column of men from a dozen different villages, and begin the dusty walk towards the city of Ur. You are leaving a world of cyclical, natural time and entering a world of linear, man-made ambition. You are going to build a god a new home, whether you, or the god for that matter, like it or not. The city of Ur is an assault on the senses. After the quiet horizontal world of your village, the city is a vertical labyrinth of noise, smell, and people. It is one of the largest cities on earth, a sprawling metropolis of 2-story mud brick houses, narrow winding alleys, and bustling canals that serve as its main arteries. The air is thick with the smells of cooking fires, livestock, perfume, and the faint, salty tang of the nearby marshes. But as you are marched through the outer gates, another smell dominates. The sharp, pungent odour of bitumen, the natural asphalt used as mortar, and the smell of 1,000 sweaty bodies working under a relentless sun. And then you see it, or rather, you see the beginning of it. In a vast, cleared space near the city's sacred precinct is the construction site. It is not yet a mountain, it is a wound in the earth. A massive, perfectly rectangular foundation has been laid out, an area the size of 6 football fields. Thousands of men, organised into gangs, swarm over the site like ants. There are mountains of materials everywhere. Colossal piles of sun-dried mud bricks, stacks of baked bricks fired in kilns whose black smoke smudges the horizon, and enormous vats of bubbling black bitumen. The scale is almost impossible to comprehend. This isn't a building, it's a geological event. You're brought to a receiving area, a chaotic hub of ancient bureaucracy. A scribe with a clay tablet and a stylus takes your name, marking it off a list. He hands you a small clay token, a shibir, which is your passport to a daily ration of bread and beer. You are assigned to a work gang, the men of the West Field, under the command of a foreman named Lugal. He is a bull of a man, his skin baked to the colour of terracotta, his voice a gravelly roar. He doesn't greet you. He simply points a thick finger towards a series of vast, shallow pits near the riverbank. Brick makers, he grunts. Get to it. There is no orientation meeting. There is no safety briefing. Your training consists of watching the man next to you and doing exactly as he does. You are now a tiny, interchangeable part in a colossal state-run machine. The priests and the king may have the divine vision, but that vision will be realized through the endless, monotonous, and anonymous labor of men like you. This is your new reality, a world of organized chaos, where the gods may be in the details, but the devil is in the logistics. It's the original open plan office, but with a lot more mud and a significantly higher chance of being crushed by a poorly stacked pile of bricks. Your new profession is one of the oldest and most essential in human history. You are a brickmaker. But any romantic notion of being a skilled artisan is quickly baked out of you by the Mesopotamian sun. Your work is not about quality, but quantity. Your gang is responsible for producing thousands of bricks a day, and your day is a grueling 13-hour cycle of mud and monotony. The process begins at the pits. You wade into the shallow water, digging up the heavy alluvial clay with a wooden spade and loading it onto a reed mat. You then drag the mat, which weighs 100 pounds, to a mixing area. Here the clay is dumped into a large sunken pit. Other workers add water from leather buckets and handfuls of chopped straw. And then comes the real work. You and a dozen other men get into the pit and you begin to stomp. For hours you tread the mixture with your bare feet, walking in a slow circular procession. The straw acts as a binding agent, preventing the finished bricks from cracking as they dry. The mud is thick and heavy, pulling at your legs with every step. It is a slow, exhausting, and mind-numbingly repetitive dance. The foreman, Lugal, watches from the edge of the pit, his eyes sharp, shouting encouragement that sounds suspiciously like threats. Once the clay is the right consistency, a secret known only to the foreman's experienced eye, it is time for moulding. You scoop up great handfuls of the heavy, wet mud and carry it to a flat, prepared area of ground. Here, other men work with rectangular wooden moulds. They slap the mud into the frame, smooth off the top with a wet hand, and then lift the mould away, leaving a perfect, wet rectangle of earth on the ground. It looks simple. It is not. The work is fast, rhythmic, and requires a surprising amount of strength. Your arms and back begin to scream in protest. You produce brick after identical brick, laying them out in long, neat rows that stretch for acres under the hot sun. These are the core of the Ziggurat, the sun-dried mud bricks that will form its immense, solid interior. They will bake in the sun for days, turning from a dark, wet brown to a pale, dusty tan. This is your universe now, the squelch of mud between your toes, the burning star of the sun on your neck, the rhythmic slap of clay into wood, and the deep, throbbing ache in your muscles that will be your constant companion. You are not building a stairway to heaven. You are personally manufacturing every single identical 50-pound step, one muddy, miserable brick at a time. After a month that feels like a lifetime, you are promoted. It is not a promotion in the modern sense. There is no extra pay, no corner office. You are simply moved from the mud pits to the structure itself. You are now a mortar carrier, and your world has turned from brown to black. Your new job is to supply the bricklayers with bitumen. The Ziggurat is not just a pile of mud bricks. It is a masterpiece of engineering, and its secret ingredient is this sticky, black, waterproof goo that bubbles up from the ground in natural pits not far from the city. Your day begins at the heating vats. Great clay pots, as tall as a man, are set over roaring fires. The raw bitumen, a thick, clumpy tar, is melted down into a hot, bubbling liquid. The smell is overpowering. A pungent, chemical odour that makes your eyes water and coats the back of your throat. You are given 2 small clay pots, suspended from a wooden yoke, that you carry across your shoulders. You dip the pots into the hot black liquid, and then you begin the long, arduous journey to the bricklayers. The structure now has a series of immense ramps, built of packed earth, that snake their way up the rising sides of the first terrace. You join a continuous 2-way river of humanity. Men like you, bent under the weight of their yokes, carry the hot bitumen and baked bricks up the ramp. On the other side, Another line of men carries the empty pots and baskets back down. There is no room for error. The ramp is steep, the footing is uneven, and a single stumble could send you and your cargo of hot tar tumbling into the workers below. It's the world's most stressful commute, and the traffic is terrible. At the top, the bricklayers work with incredible speed and precision. They are the master craftsmen. They lay a course of the fine, kiln-baked bricks that form the ziggurat's outer shell. Then you arrive, pouring the hot bitumen over the bricks, where another worker spreads it evenly with a wooden tool. Before the bitumen cools and hardens, another layer of bricks is set in place. This outer skin, 10 feet thick, will make the ziggurat impervious to the weather, protecting its soft, sun-dried core. You also learn about another clever innovation. Every few courses of brick, the masons lay down a thick layer of woven reeds, their ends sticking out from the face of the ziggurat. The priests say these are to honor the gods. The engineers, and your foreman, know they are a brilliant drainage system, wicking moisture out of the massive structure to prevent internal pressure from building up and causing a collapse. It's all very clever, but for you, it just means more hauling, more sweat, and the constant, inescapable smell of tar. The day ends not when you are tired, but when the sun touches the horizon. You shuffle back down the ramp, your shoulders aching, your skin stained with black specks of bitumen that will take days to wear off. You are no longer just a brickmaker. You are a vital part of the assembly line. You have seen the genius of the king's architects up close. They are not just building a solid mountain. They are building a smart one, a structure designed to last for eternity. You are a humble bearer of the black, sticky blood that holds this great beast together, one painful step at a time. As dusk settles over the plains, a great horn sounds, signaling the end of the workday. The frantic energy of the construction site dissipates, replaced by the weary shuffle of thousands of men heading back to the workers' camp. The camp is a temporary city in itself, a sprawling warren of long barrack-like structures made from reeds and daubed mud, located a safe distance from the main city. And, more importantly, from the sacred precinct. This is your home now. It is noisy, crowded, and smells of wood smoke, unwashed bodies, and simmering barley porridge. You find your assigned sleeping space in a longhouse you share with the 50 other men in your work gang. Your bed is a simple reed mat on the hard-packed earth floor. Privacy is a concept that has not been invented yet. You are surrounded by the sounds of men snoring, coughing, and muttering in their sleep in a half-dozen different languages from across the Sumerian Empire. You drop your yoke and head to the cook fires. You hand your clay ration token to the quartermaster, who grunts and ladles a scoop of thick greyish porridge into your clay bowl. He then fills your cup with beer from a large ceramic jar. The beer is not the light, fizzy drink of the modern world. It is thick, cloudy, and nutritious, more of a liquid bread than an intoxicant. It is the calorie-dense fuel that keeps this entire workforce moving. You sit with the other men from your village. Conversation is sparse. You are all too tired for stories. You talk of home, of the fields, of the health of your families. You compare the aches in your backs and the blisters on your hands. In the distance, you can hear the sounds of gambling, men wagering their next day's rations on a game of dice made from animal knuckle bones. Fights occasionally break out, quickly and brutally suppressed by the foreman. Disease is a constant unseen threat. The water is drawn from the canals, and despite the priest's best efforts to bless it, it carries sickness. A man in your longhouse has come down with a fever and a terrible cough. He is isolated in a small infirmary tent, but everyone knows he will likely not return. A serious injury on the worksite is just as much of a death sentence. There are no great healers here, only basic first aid. Life is cheap, labour is plentiful. This is the brutal calculus of the King's Great Project. You finish your meagre meal, rinse your bowl, and head back to your sleeping mat. You fall into a deep, exhausted sleep, knowing that in just a few short hours, before the sun rises, the horn will sound again, calling you back to another day of hauling, lifting, and building. One day, your gang is assigned a task near the base of the Ziggurat, in the shadow of the great central staircase. Here, you get a close look at the men who are truly in charge. They are not the foremen, who rule through intimidation and experience. They are the priests and the scribes, the white-collar workers of the ancient world. They move with an unhurried, deliberate pace. Their clean linen robes a stark contrast to your own sweat-stained loincloth. They carry no bricks, only the tools of their own trade. A clay tablet held in one hand and a sharpened reed stylus tucked behind their ear. You watch them as they work. They are the project managers, the accountants, and the quality control inspectors. Two priests stand at the base of the ramp, their eyes narrowed, studying the angle of ascent. They confer in low voices, pointing, and then a scribe makes a note on his tablet. You see another group of scribes at a delivery point, meticulously counting a shipment of kiln-fired bricks that has just arrived by barge. Each brick is checked. Any that are cracked or imperfect are set aside. Nothing but the best is to be used for the outer casing. This is a divine project, and the gods, it seems, are sticklers for detail. The sheer scale of the bureaucracy is as impressive as the structure itself. Everything is recorded. The number of bricks made by your gang each day, the amount of bitumen used, the daily ration of barley distributed, the number of workers absent due to sickness. It is all noted down in wedge-shaped script. The Ziggurat is not just being built, it is being documented into existence. This is the genius of the Sumerian state, the ability to organize and control the labor of tens of thousands of people through the simple technology of writing. Think of it as the world's first and most ambitious spreadsheet. A 4,000-year-old construction project managed entirely on clay tablets. A high-ranking priest, his robes finer than the others, his shaved head gleaming in the sun, walks past your work area. Your foreman, Lugal, who fears no man, immediately bows his head in deference. The priest ignores you all, his eyes on the growing structure. He is not seeing a construction site. He is seeing a cosmic mountain, a link between the mortal world and the divine realm. He is the keeper of the vision. You, however, see the reality. You see the aching backs, the endless lines of workers, the sheer brute force required to turn that vision into a physical object. The priest's power comes from the gods. The scribe's power comes from the written word. Your power comes from your shoulders. And in this world, it is abundantly clear which form of power is at the top of the organizational chart. Months have passed. The dry season is ending, and the time for your return to the fields is approaching. But the structure you are building is no longer a mere foundation. It is a true mountain, a colossal, three-tiered structure of solid brick that dominates the flat landscape for miles in every direction. The first and largest terrace is complete. Now you are working on the second, smaller tier, and the sense of height is terrifying. You are part of a human chain, passing heavy, kiln-baked bricks from one man to the next up a steep, temporary ladder of wooden beams, lashed together with rope. The work is more dangerous now. The sun is just as hot, but now there is wind. A strong gust can make you sway on your precarious perch. You don't look down. To look down is to invite the dizzying vertigo that can send you plummeting to the hard-packed earth below. You focus on the man below you, on the weight of the brick he passes into your hands, and on the hands of the man above you. Your world has shrunk to this simple, repetitive, and potentially fatal transaction. A brick appears, you take it, you lift it, you pass it on, over and over again. But from this high vantage point, you can see the entire world. You see the city of spread out beneath you, a map of life. You see the great canals glittering like veins of silver, with merchant ships from as far away as Dilmun, modern Bahrain, gliding towards the bustling port. You see the patchwork of green fields, your fields, stretching to the horizon. You see the great fortified walls of the city and the sprawl of the workers' camp, where you sleep. You are perched halfway between the earth and the sky, and for the first time, you feel a flicker of something beyond mere exhaustion. It is a sense of awe. You are not just hauling a brick, you are placing a star in a new constellation. The Ziggurat is designed with cosmic alignments in mind. Its corners are oriented to the 4 cardinal points of the compass. The great triple staircase that ascends the front of the first terrace is a monumental gateway, designed for grand processions of priests and royalty. As you work, you see the final decorative touches being added to the lower levels. The outer walls are being embellished with niches and buttresses, breaking up the monotony of the brickwork and creating a play of light and shadow. This is not just a pile of mud. It is a work of art, a declaration of power, and a prayer written in 50 million bricks. And your small, anonymous contribution is a part of it. The final days of your conscription are upon you. The main structure of the Ziggurat is complete. All that remains is the small temple, the dwelling place of the god Nana, which sits on the very highest terrace. This is the most sacred space, and common labourers like you are not permitted to work on it. That is a job for specially purified craftsmen. But your gang is assigned the task of hauling the precious materials for the temple up the final steep flight of stairs. The loads are different now. You are no longer carrying rough, heavy bricks. You are carefully transporting massive beams of cedar wood, imported at immense cost from the distant mountains of Lebanon. The fragrant, spicy scent of the wood is a strange and wonderful perfume in the dusty air. You carry crates filled with sheets of polished copper, which will be used to adorn the temple doors, flashing in the sun like a beacon. You haul finely glazed blue bricks, a rare and expensive luxury, which will be used to decorate the temple's facade, making it look as if a piece of the night sky has fallen to earth. As you reach the top platform, you are ordered to deposit your load and leave immediately. But for a fleeting moment, you get a glimpse of the sacred space. The air up here is different, thinner, cleaner. The sounds of the city and the worksite below are a distant hum. You see the priests dressed in immaculate white linen, performing purification rituals, chanting in a low sonorous drone and wafting incense from clay censers. The smell is intoxicating, sweet, woody, and utterly alien. You see the master craftsmen beginning to lay the blue-glazed bricks, their movements slow and reverent. This is the summit of the world, the meeting place of the human and the divine. The gulf between your world and theirs has never been more apparent. Your life is one of sweat, mud, and barley porridge. Theirs is one of incense, chanting, and divine communion. You've spent months of your life, risked your health and safety, to build this platform, this stage for their sacred drama. Yet you are not allowed to witness the play itself. You are the foundation, essential but unseen, the raw material from which their sacred world is constructed. You are a tool that has served its purpose. You take one last look at the heavens, which seem closer than ever before, and then you turn and begin the long walk back down to the world of mortal men. The work is done. On the final day, a great festival of dedication is declared. The entire city of and thousands of people from the surrounding towns and villages gather in the sacred precinct at the foot of the Ziggurat. The mood is one of jubilant celebration and religious awe. The king himself, Namu, leads a magnificent procession up the central staircase. He is followed by a long line of priests, their shaved heads gleaming, their white robes a stark contrast against the dark brick of the structure. They carry statues of the gods, offerings of fine food and precious oils. You stand in the vast crowd, craning your neck to see. You are no longer a worker, you are a spectator. You have been given a bonus ration of beer and a small loaf of bread made with white flour. A rare treat. The sound of drums, lyres and pipes fills the air. A great chorus of temple singers begins a hymn of praise to Nana, the moon god. You watch as the procession disappears into the temple at the summit. You cannot see what is happening up there, but you can imagine it. The offerings being laid, the final prayers being said, the great mountain being officially presented to its divine owner. Later, there are feasts in the public squares. The king had been generous. The beer flows freely. For one day, the rigid social hierarchy seems to relax. You sit with the men from your work gang, your foreman Lugal among them, and you all drink to the completion of the great work. There is a sense of pride, of shared accomplishment. You have survived. You have built something that will stand for 1,000 years. The next morning, you collect your final ration and begin the walk home. As you leave the city, you turn to look back. The great Ziggurat of now stands complete, a perfect, symmetrical mountain of human will. It towers over the city, over the flat plains, a permanent and unshakable feature of the landscape. It is a ladder for the gods, a symbol of the king's power, a centre of economic and spiritual life for the entire empire. You know all of this. But for you, it is something more intimate. You know the feel of its bricks, the smell of its mortar. You know the ache in the muscles that lifted it from the earth. You were one of thousands, an anonymous face in the crowd. But you were there. You helped build the mountain. And as you walk back to your village, back to the familiar rhythm of the fields and the river, you carry the weight and the wonder of that knowledge with you. The gods have their house, the king has his monument, and you have a story to tell. The life of a saloon owner in the Old West. We have this image from the movies, don't we? A dapper man in a waistcoat, dealing cards with a steely gaze, effortlessly calming down gunfighters with a quiet word and a nod. But the brutal reality is that being a saloon owner was less about being a charismatic peacekeeper and more about being an overworked, underslept small business owner. A combination of janitor, debt collector, amateur therapist and bouncer, all while trying to sell whiskey that could probably strip paint. The year is 1878. The place is a brand new, unnamed mining camp in the Arizona Territory, a place that exists only because of a rumor of silver. And you've just gambled your entire life savings on a wagon, a dozen barrels of questionable alcohol, and a sign that says Saloon. Your journey here was the easy part. You left a life of predictable boredom back east, a clerk in a dry goods store perhaps, lured by the promise of the frontier. The promise wasn't of gold or silver, not for you. It was the promise of being your own boss, of building something from nothing. Now, Standing in the middle of what can generously be called a town, you begin to question the wisdom of that promise. The town is a chaotic collection of canvas tents, half-finished wooden shacks and open latrines, all clinging to the side of a sun-scorched canyon. The only street is a river of ankle-deep dust that turns to boot-sucking mud, with the slightest hint of rain. There is no law, no church, and no running water. But there are 100 thirsty, desperate men who have just finished a 12-hour shift digging in the dirt. And that is your business plan. Your saloon is, at present, a glorious 20 by 30 foot patch of dirt that you purchased for an outrageous sum from a man who claimed to own the land. Your first task is not to build a bar, but to build a building. You hire 2 out-of-work prospectors, paying them in whiskey credit, and begin to erect a structure. It's a simple brutish affair, a box house made of green, unseasoned pine planks hauled in by wagon. The wood is so fresh it still weeps sap in the heat. There are no glass windows. Those are a luxury for a later time. Instead, you have wooden shutters to keep out the worst of the dust storms and the night's chill. The floor is the earth itself, which you try to level as best you can. The centerpiece of your establishment, the bar, is a masterpiece of frontier engineering. It consists of 3 long, rough-sawn planks laid across 4 empty whiskey barrels. It's uneven, it's splintery, and it will become the stage for countless dramas, tragedies, and the occasional clumsy comedy. Behind this, you construct some crude shelves for your meagre stock. There is no ornate, mirrored back bar shipped all the way from St. Louis. That is a dream for another year, for another town. For now, your back bar is a piece of canvas tacked to the wall on which your artistic bartender, another prospector paying off a debt, has charcoaled a crude drawing of a reclining woman. It's not exactly high art, but it's something to look at. You hang your hand-painted sign, the letters a little crooked, above the simple door frame. You have no swinging doors, just a heavy blanket to keep the flies out. You sweep the dirt floor one last time, scattering a layer of fresh sawdust to absorb the inevitable spills of tobacco juice and whiskey. You line up your collection of mismatched tin cups and thick, heavy glasses on the bar. You are not a charismatic entrepreneur. You are a man who has sunk every penny he has into a wooden box in the middle of nowhere. You take a deep breath, the air tasting of pine sap and dust, and you wait. The sun begins to set, and in the distance you can hear the sounds of exhausted men walking back to camp. It's time to open for business. The first customers are not the swaggering cowboys or steely-eyed gunslingers of legend. They are something far more common and far more profitable. Tired, dirty men. They are miners, their faces permanently smudged with rock dust, their hands calloused and cracked. They are teamsters who have spent 10 days hauling freight across the desert. They shuffle into your saloon, blinking in the relative dimness of the lantern light. They don't order fancy cocktails. They don't ask for a specific brand. They walk up to your splintery plank bar, slap down a coin or a small pouch of gold dust, and utter the 2 most beautiful words in the English language: whiskey. And the whiskey you serve them is a testament to the frontier's blend of ingenuity and shameless fraud. You did not haul dozens of barrels of aged Kentucky bourbon across the plains. That would be absurdly expensive. What you have is whiskey in the broadest possible sense. The base is rectified alcohol, a cheap, colourless and brutally strong spirit shipped in from a distillery back east. In your small back room, which is really just a corner hidden by another blanket, you perform the sacred art of turning this fire water into something sellable. You mix it with water from the town's slightly less than sanitary well, add some burnt sugar for colour, and perhaps a plug of chewing tobacco for that authentic aged in oak flavour. Some saloon men are known to add strychnine or rattlesnake heads for an extra kick. You're not that dishonest, yet. You call it Old Frontier Reserve, and you sell it for 25 cents a shot. The men drink it without complaint. They are not connoisseurs. They are men seeking oblivion, a brief, fiery respite from the aches in their backs and the crushing disappointment of another day spent chasing a rumour of silver. They line up at the bar, shoulder to shoulder, the collective smell of sweat, dirt, and desperation filling the small room. Your job is to pour. You develop a rhythm. Take the coin, pour the shot, slide it down the uneven bar. Repeat. You are not a host. You're a human vending machine. You learn to weigh the gold dust they offer on a small, delicate scale, your eyes narrowed, watching for the common trick of mixing in brass filings. Every transaction is a small battle of wits. As the night wears on, the atmosphere changes. The initial exhaustion gives way to a boisterous, drunken energy. The men's voices grow louder. They begin to tell stories, to laugh, to argue. An old prospector in the corner begins to sing a mournful, off-key ballad. This is the moment your saloon transforms from a simple drinking establishment into something more. It becomes the town's living room, its confessional, its only source of light and noise in a vast, dark and lonely wilderness. You stand behind your bar, wiping it down with a damp rag, a silent observer in the centre of this small, chaotic universe you have created. You are making money, yes, but you are also selling something more valuable, a temporary cure for loneliness. Your day begins long before your first customer's hangover does. The sun is not yet a pink smudge on the horizon when you are jolted awake by the cold. You sleep on a simple cot in the back room of the saloon, and the thin pine walls offer little protection from the desert's nightly chill. Your first task is not to count the previous night's takings, but to confront the wreckage. The air in the saloon is thick and stale, a fragrant symphony of spilled beer, cold cigar smoke, sawdust, and unwashed humanity. Your job title may be proprietor, but your first duty of the day is janitor. You grab a broom and begin the archaeological dig through the sawdust on the floor. You unearth a landscape of the previous night's sins, a scattering of spent cartridges from a celebratory pistol shot into the ceiling, a few playing cards, a broken clay pipe, and almost certainly a tooth. You sweep it all out the front door into the dusty street, where it becomes part of the town's general filth. You then take a bucket and a stiff brush to the bar top, scrubbing away the sticky rings of spilled drinks and the dark stains of tobacco juice that mist the spittoons. The spittoons themselves, heavy brass bowls filled with sawdust, are your next delightful task. You carry them out back and empty their foul contents, trying not to breathe through your nose. It's not exactly the glamorous life you imagined, but the bar won't clean itself. Once the place is reasonably clean, you take stock. You measure your remaining whiskey, cutting it with a little more water to stretch the supply. You check your beer barrels, shipped in from a brewery in a larger town, tapping a new one if necessary. Then you must deal with suppliers. A local rancher arrives with a wagon load of firewood for your small pot-bellied stove. You haggle over the price, eventually agreeing to pay half in cash and half in saloon credit. A hunter brings in a freshly killed deer, which you buy for the free lunch. This is another staple of your business model. You set out a platter of salty, greasy venison stew and hard biscuits on the bar around noon. It's not an act of charity, it's a brilliant marketing strategy. The The salt makes the men thirsty, and the free food keeps them in your establishment, ordering more drinks. The rest of the day is a long, slow procession of hours spent behind the bar. The afternoons are quiet. A few old prospectors might sit at a table, nursing a single beer for hours, playing a desultory game of checkers. This is when you do your books, scratching figures into a leather-bound ledger. You track your expenses, your income, and most importantly, your credit accounts. A huge portion of your business runs on promises. You have a slate behind the bar where you mark down the debts of miners and cowboys who are good for it, or who you hope are good for it. It's a constant gamble. You're part banker, part loan shark, and every unpaid debt is a cut out of your own thin profit margin. You stand there in the quiet afternoon light, the only sounds the buzzing of flies and the gentle clink of a checker piece, and you wait for the sun to go down and the real business to begin again. After a few months, you have enough capital to invest in the one thing that will elevate your saloon from a mere watering hole to a true social institution: entertainment. This does not mean you are hiring a troupe of Shakespearean actors. Your first hire is a piano player. He is a man named Silas, a failed preacher from back east with a love for whiskey and a talent for pounding out a tune. You acquire a piano, a battered, out-of-tune upright, at great expense from a freight hauler. Silas's job is to provide a constant rolling soundtrack to the evening's activities. He only knows 3 songs: Oh, Susanna, Buffalo Gals, and a funereal dirge he claims is a waltz, but he plays them with enthusiasm, if not accuracy. The constant tinny music fills the room, creating a festive atmosphere that encourages men to drink more and stay longer. Your next investment is more delicate. You hire a saloon girl, or a hostess, as you prefer to call her. Her name is Rose, and she's not the glamorous, golden-hearted dancer of the movies. She's a tough, pragmatic woman who has come west for the same reason as everyone else: to make a living. Her job is not to sing or dance. Her job is to sell drinks. She circulates among the tables, laughing at the miners' clumsy jokes, listening to their tales of woe, and gently persuading them to buy another round, or perhaps a bottle of the ridiculously overpriced champagne, which is really just cheap cider. She works on commission. For every drink she sells, she gets a brass token. At the end of the night, she cashes these tokens in with you. It is a hard, exhausting job. She's on her feet for 10 hours a night, fending off unwanted advances, breathing in the thick cigar smoke, and maintaining a professional cheerfulness that is a performance worthy of any stage. You also introduce gambling. In a corner of the saloon, you set up a permanent table for poker and faro. You are not the house dealer. That is too risky. Instead, you hire a professional gambler, a man with slicked back hair and eyes that miss nothing. You provide the space, the cards, and the security. In return, you take a cut of every pot. This is a steady, reliable source of income, but it is also the saloon's greatest source of tension. Gambling brings out the worst in men. Arguments over a single card can escalate into violence with terrifying speed. Part of your job is to watch the games, to be a silent, intimidating presence that discourages cheating and keeps the peace. Your saloon is now a complete ecosystem of vice and entertainment. The out-of-tune piano, the clatter of poker chips, the low murmur of conversations, Rose's forced laughter. It all blends into a single chaotic symphony. You have created a place that caters to every one of a lonely man's needs. A drink to dull the pain, a game of chance to offer a sliver of hope, and a friendly face to make him feel, for a few hours at least, like he is not entirely alone in the world. You are no longer just selling whiskey. you are selling a carefully curated and highly profitable illusion of the good life. Your life is a constant nerve-wracking tightrope. Walk over a canyon of financial ruin. You are a businessman in one of the most volatile markets imaginable. Your entire town's economy is based on a hole in the ground. If the silver vein runs deep, the town booms. Men have money, and they spend it freely in your saloon. You can afford to replace your plank and barrel bar with a real one made of polished mahogany. You can even afford glass windows. But if the vein peters out, or if a rumour of a bigger strike in the next canyon starts to circulate, the town can die overnight. Your customers will pack up their mules and disappear, leaving you with a building full of whiskey and a ledger full of worthless debts. You learn to be a shrewd and sometimes ruthless judge of character. Every man who walks through your door is a potential asset or a potential liability. You have to know who to extend credit to and who to demand cash from. The burly foreman from the Big Bonanza mine? His credit is good. The shifty-eyed prospector who always has a new can't-miss claim. Cash only. This makes you unpopular. You're accused of being greedy, of being heartless. But you know that a single bad debt can wipe out a week's profit. You are not running a charity. You are running a business, and sentimentality is a luxury you cannot afford. You also have competition. For the first few months, you were the only saloon in town. But as the camp grows, others arrive. A rival saloon opens across the street. It is bigger, newer, and has a piano player who knows 4 songs. Suddenly, you are in a price war. You have to lower your whiskey prices. You have to offer a better free lunch, perhaps adding some suspicious-looking sausages to your venison stew. You have to maintain a delicate balance between keeping your customers and staying profitable. It's a classic small business dilemma, just with more spittoons and a higher chance of your competitor trying to settle a dispute with a firearm. You also become the town's unofficial banker. Miners, not trusting the flimsy locks on their tents, will often leave their pouches of gold dust with you for safekeeping. You store them in a heavy iron box under the bar. This is a huge responsibility. A robbery would not only cost you your customers' savings, but also your reputation, which is the most valuable currency you have. You learn to sleep with a loaded shotgun under your cot. You are no gunslinger, but you are a man with a lot to protect. Your saloon is not just a place of business. It is the town's financial and social anchor, and you are the man chained to it, desperately trying to keep it from being swept away in the next flash flood of economic disaster. One Tuesday night, it happens. An argument that has been simmering for days at the faro table finally boils over. It starts, as it always does, over a small thing, an accusation of a misdealt card. 2 men, a miner named Jake and a cowboy named Slim, are on their feet, shouting. The tinny piano music falters and dies. The entire saloon goes quiet, a sudden, tense silence broken only by the angry voices. This is the moment you have been preparing for, the moment that separates a successful saloon owner from a man whose establishment is about to be torn apart. Your first move is not to reach for a weapon. It is to project an aura of absolute unshakable calm. You place both your hands flat on the bar, your movements slow and deliberate. You catch the eye of your bartender, a large, silent man you hired specifically for his size, and give him a slight nod. You then speak, your voice not loud but low and steady, designed to cut through the anger. "All right, boys," you say. "Let's take it easy. No need for all this." You are not appealing to their better nature. You are reminding them of the rules of your establishment, an unspoken contract they entered into when they walked through the door. Jake, the miner, is too drunk and too angry to listen. He shoves the table, sending cards and chips scattering across the sawdust floor. Slim, the cowboy, reaches for his pistol. This is the tipping point. Before he can draw, your bartender is there. He doesn't throw a punch. He simply grabs Slim's arm in a grip like a blacksmith's vice. At the same time, you walk around the bar, a heavy, sawed-off shotgun now held loosely in your hand. You're not pointing it at anyone. It is just there, a property, a very persuasive prop. Slim, you say, your voice still calm. I think you've had enough for tonight. Your credit is good. Settle up in the morning. The tension in the room is a physical thing. Everyone is watching. This is not a heroic standoff. It is a delicate and very dangerous business negotiation. You are trying to de-escalate the situation without anyone losing face, and without anyone putting a bullet hole in your precious back bar canvas. Eventually, after a long, silent moment, Slim nods. Your bartender releases his arm. You escort both men to the door, one after the other. Come back tomorrow when you're sober, you tell each of them. You have not won a fight. You have successfully managed a crisis. You have protected your property and your customers. You turn back to the silent room, pick up a chair that was knocked over and say, "All right, Silas. Let's have a tune." The piano starts up again, the conversations resume, and the business of selling whiskey continues. As your town grows from a temporary camp into a permanent settlement, the role of your saloon evolves. It is more than just a place for drinking and gambling. It becomes the beating heart of the community, the one place where every facet of frontier life converges. You are the silent witness to it all. On Monday mornings, the stagecoach drops off the mail pouch at your saloon, and you act as the town's unofficial postmaster, sorting through the letters and handing them out to anxious miners and ranchers. Your bar is the first place they hear news from home, the place where fortunes are made and lost not at the card table, but in the contents of a single envelope. Your largest table, in the back corner, serves as the town's courthouse. Once a month, a travelling circuit judge arrives. He doesn't have a dedicated building, so he holds court in your establishment. You clear away the poker chips, and for a day, your saloon is filled with a different kind of drama. You listen to testimony about property disputes, accusations of cattle rustling, and the occasional trial for a serious crime. The judge, a weary man in a dusty coat, drinks your whiskey as he dispenses justice. The defendant might be sentenced to hang, and the judge will stay for another drink before moving on to the next town. You are providing the physical space where civilization is slowly and sometimes brutally being imposed on the wilderness. The saloon is also the town's business centre. Cattle ranchers from the surrounding valleys come in to make deals with buyers from back east, shaking hands over a bottle of your best, which is to say, your least worst whiskey. Prospectors sell shares in their newly discovered claims, drawing maps on your tabletops and spilled beer. A travelling salesman, a drummer, might set up a display of his wares on your bar, from miracle patent medicines to the latest in barbed wire technology. Your saloon is the Chamber of Commerce, the Stock Exchange, and the Patent Office, all rolled into one noisy, smoke-filled room. You, the proprietor, become the keeper of all the town's secrets. You overhear everything. You know who is in debt, who is having an affair, who is planning to sell their ranch, and who is secretly buying up water rights. You are a rhapsody of gossip and information, which makes you a man of quiet, considerable power. People come to you not just for a drink, but for information, for advice. You are the town's confessor, its therapist, its most reliable source of news. You stand behind your bar, polishing a glass, your face a neutral mask, and you listen. You have become the stable, silent center of a chaotic, ever-changing world. A stranger rides into town. He is not a miner or a rancher. He is dressed in black, his movements are quiet and economical, and he has the cold, watchful eyes of a man who makes his living through violence. He is a professional gambler, or perhaps something more. He doesn't drink your cheap whiskey. He orders a full bottle and a clean glass. He sets up a game of poker at the back table and lets it be known that the stakes are high. This is the moment from the dime novels, the scene that will be talked about for years to come. The game starts small. A few of the more successful mine owners and the local cattle barons sit down. The clatter of chips is sharper, more deliberate than usual. The atmosphere in the saloon shifts. The usual boisterous noise is replaced by a low, tense hum. Everyone is aware of the drama unfolding at the back table. You stand at your post, watching. You are not concerned with who wins or loses. You are concerned with the integrity of the game and the safety of your establishment. A high-stakes game is good for business. It brings in spectators who drink while they watch, but it is also a powder keg. Hours pass. The piles of chips grow into small mountains. The cattle baron is losing heavily, his face a mask of sweat and frustration. The stranger in black is winning, his expression unchanging, his hands moving with a fluid, reptilian grace. The accusations start as a low mutter. The cattle baron is sure he is being cheated. He is a powerful man in this town, used to getting his way. He accuses the stranger of dealing from the bottom of the deck. The stranger doesn't deny it. He doesn't say anything. He simply stops playing and looks at the cattle baron, his hand resting lightly on the table, inches from his pistol. The saloon is utterly silent. The piano player has fled. Your bartender has quietly armed himself with a bung starter. This is the moment where your investment, your livelihood, can go up in smoke. You walk slowly from behind the bar. You place a fresh, unopened bottle of your best whiskey on the table between the two men. The game is over for tonight, gentlemen, you say, your voice leaving no room for argument. The house has made its cut. What you do outside of my saloon is your own business. But in here, the game is over. You are not a lawman. You are a property owner. And you are asserting the oldest law of all, the right of a man to protect his domain. After a moment that stretches into an eternity, the stranger nods, collects his winnings, and leaves. The cattle baron, fuming, storms out. You have just faced down two of the most dangerous men in the county, not with a gun, but with the simple, absolute authority of a man who has too much to lose. The night is over. The last drunken miner has been gently but firmly shown the door. You bar it from the inside, the heavy wooden beam thudding into place, a sound of finality and relief. The silence that descends on the room is a blessing. It is just you, the flickering lantern light, and the ghosts of the day's business. You begin the familiar nightly ritual of cleaning up. You collect the empty glasses, sweep the floor, and wipe down the tables, your movements slow and methodical in the quiet solitude. You sit at the main table, the one that serves as a courthouse and a trading floor, and you count the day's takings. A small pile of coins, a few crumpled bills, and a leather pouch of gold dust. You weigh the dust carefully, its soft, heavy gleam, a tangible representation of your success. It is enough. Enough to pay your suppliers, enough to pay Silas and Rose, and enough left over to put in the iron box under your cot. You have survived another day. You have turned chaos into commerce, loneliness into profit. You blow out the main lantern, and the saloon is plunged into shadow, the only light coming from the moon through your new glass windows. You look out at the dark, quiet street. This collection of shacks and tents is now a real town. It has a general store, a blacksmith, even the beginnings of a church. And your saloon, your noisy, disreputable, essential saloon, is its anchor. You are not a hero. You are not a pioneer in the grand sense. You have not tamed the wilderness or discovered a new frontier. You have simply found a place where people were thirsty, and you gave them a place to drink. The saloon owner of the Old West was not a legend. He was a pragmatist. He was a small business owner in a land of grand and often fatal gambles. He created a space where a raw, violent and hopeful society could come together to forget its troubles, to celebrate its small victories, and to simply be in the company of others. He was the quiet, observant hub of the wheel, the man who profited from the chaos, but also, in his own small, uncelebrated way, helped to keep it from spinning completely out of control. And in the great mythic story of the West, his was the silent, thankless, but absolutely essential work of keeping the lights on. The life of an Egyptian temple priest. We're taking a journey down the Nile, past the golden sands, and into the cool stone heart of the most powerful institution in ancient Egypt. We're not here to visit the pharaoh, but to look at the life of the men who served his bosses, the Egyptian temple priests. We have this romantic image of wise, mystical figures, keepers of ancient secrets who spent their days in serene contemplation and communion with the gods. But the brutal reality is that being a priest was less a spiritual calling and more a demanding, hereditary career. It was a life of obsessive ritual, endless bureaucracy, and managing the day-to-day needs of a divine celebrity who also happened to be the CEO of Egypt's largest and wealthiest corporation. The year is 1450 BC, during the golden age of the New Kingdom. The city is Thebes, the religious capital of a global superpower, and you have just been promoted. Your life of divine service is about to begin. Your career path was chosen for you at birth. You are the son of a Wab priest, a low-ranking functionary in the vast temple complex of Amun-Ra at Karnak. This is not a story of a humble boy being struck by a divine vision. In Egypt, the priesthood is a family business. It is an inheritance, passed down from father to son, like a piece of property or a favourite set of tools. Your childhood was spent not in the fields, but within the temple's outer courtyards. While other boys learned to farm or sail, you learned the endless hierarchies of the gods and the even more complex hierarchies of the temple staff. Your earliest memories are a strange mix of the sacred and the profoundly mundane. You remember the awe-inspiring sight of the great pylon gates towering over you like man-made cliffs. But you also remember the smell of baking bread from the temple bakeries and the endless rhythmic clatter of scribes' styluses on papyrus from the administrative offices. You saw the grand processions, the priests in their immaculate white linen, but you also saw them afterwards, sitting in the shade, complaining about the heat and gossiping about a rival priest's promotion. You learned very early that the house of a god is run much like the house of any great lord. With a lot of prayer, yes, but also with a staggering amount of paperwork and logistical planning. Your formal education began in the temple school, the Art Sebite. Here you spent years mastering the intricate art of hieroglyphic writing. This was the essential qualification for any administrative job, sacred or secular. You didn't just copy texts, you memorized them. hymns to the gods, lists of offerings, medical treatises, and, most importantly, legal and economic documents. You are being trained not just as a spiritual servant, but as a manager, an accountant for the divine estate. It's a bit like going to business school, but with more gods and a significantly higher chance of your final exam being judged by a deity with the head of a crocodile. Now, at the age of 20, your apprenticeship is over. Your father has spoken to his superiors, a donation has been made to the temple treasury, and a position has opened up. You are to be initiated as a Wob priest, a purity priest. This is the entry-level position, the first rung on the long ladder of the temple hierarchy. It is not a glamorous job. You will not be advising the pharaoh or interpreting the will of the gods. Your primary responsibility is much more fundamental. You are, in essence, part of the divine housekeeping staff. And your first and most important lesson is in the all-consuming and deeply uncomfortable art of ritual purity. Your new life begins before dawn, in the cold, star-dusted darkness. You are roused from your simple mat in the priest's quarters, a series of modest mud brick houses within the temple's vast outer walls. Before you can even think about your duties, you must first purify yourself. And this is not a quick shower. You proceed to the sacred lake, a massive, man-made rectangular pool that lies within the temple complex. The water is cool, still, and black in the pre-dawn light. Here you perform the first of many daily ablutions, a ritual washing of your hands, face, and feet as you murmur the prescribed prayers. Then comes the most rigorous and demanding aspect of your new life, the shaving. A state of ritual purity requires the complete absence of body hair, which is considered unclean. Every second day, you must shave your entire body, from the top of your head to the soles of your feet. There are no steel razors. You use a small, brutally sharp bronze or copper blade. The process is slow, uncomfortable, and leaves your skin raw and irritated. You must also rinse your mouth with water mixed with natron, a natural salt that acts as an antiseptic. The taste is bitter and unpleasant. It's a full-body commitment to cleanliness that makes modern hygiene routines look like a casual afterthought. Your diet is now strictly controlled. You are forbidden from eating fish, a common staple for ordinary Egyptians, as it is considered a foul creature of the chaotic waters. Certain types of beans and meats are also prescribed. Your clothing is a simple wrap-around kilt of pure white linen. Wool is forbidden, as it comes from a living animal and is thus impure. You must also remain celibate for the periods you are on duty, which are divided into files, or rotations. Your priestly group will serve for 1 month, then return to your family and secular life for 3 months, before returning to the temple. This is not a full-time monastic life. It's more like a sacred part-time job with a very strict dress code. This relentless focus on purity is not about personal comfort or health. It is about creating a suitable vessel to enter the presence of the divine. The God is a being of perfect, absolute purity. To approach him in an unclean state would be a dangerous, cosmic insult, risking not just your own life, but the stability of the entire universe. So you endure the cold water, the painful shaving, the bland diet. You are systematically stripping away your own humanity, your own connection to the messy, chaotic, and hairy world outside, to transform yourself into a sterile instrument, a clean slate upon which the will of the God can be written. It is a deeply spiritual concept achieved through the most mundane and physically uncomfortable means imaginable. Once you are purified, your real work begins. You join a silent single-file procession of other wob priests, your bare feet padding softly on the cool stone floors of the temple. The public is not allowed in these sacred spaces. The temple is not a place of communal worship like a modern church or mosque. It is the literal house of the god, and only his chosen servants are permitted to enter. You walk through a series of progressively smaller and darker courtyards and halls, the air growing cooler and thicker with the scent of old incense and stone. The walls are covered in painted reliefs, depicting the pharaoh making offerings to the gods, a constant reminder of the divine order you serve. You finally arrive at the heart of the temple, the sanctuary. This is a small, dark, and utterly silent chamber. Here stands the naos, a sealed stone or wooden shrine. And inside that shrine, veiled in fine linen, is the reason for this entire colossal structure, the cult statue of the god Amun-Ra. It is not a huge monument. It is a small, portable statue, perhaps only a few feet high, made of gilded wood, with inlaid eyes of precious stone. But to you and all Egyptians, this is not a symbol of the god. It is the god. His divine essence, his Ba, resides within this physical form. The high priest, the first prophet of Amun, breaks the clay seal on the shrine's doors, a seal that was applied the previous evening to protect the god while he slept. The doors are opened. This is the great daily ritual, the waking of the god. It is a sacred and theatrical performance. The high priest begins to chant the morning hymn, his voice a low, resonant drone in the small chamber. The hymn praises the god, greeting him as he awakens from the darkness of night, just as the sun rises over the eastern horizon. It is a moment of profound cosmic importance, the reaffirmation of the cycle of creation. Your role in this is humble, but essential. You are an assistant. You hold the bowls of purified water. You present the small pellets of incense to be burned in a censer, the sweet smoke filling the chamber. You watch as the high priest carefully removes the god's linen wrappings from the previous night. The statue is then ritually washed, purified with water from the sacred lake. It is then dressed in fresh, fine linen kilts and adorned with its jewellery, necklaces of gold and lapis lazuli, tiny bracelets, a magnificent headdress. The god is being treated like a king, or more accurately, like a high-maintenance celebrity who requires a team of personal assistants to get him ready for the day. You are part of the divine entourage, the sacred glam squad. After the god is dressed and adorned, it is time for his breakfast. You and the other junior priests bring in the offerings. This is not a symbolic gesture. It is a full, magnificent meal. There are loaves of bread in a dozen different shapes, roasted cuts of beef and goose, pyramids of figs and dates, and jugs of fine wine and beer. The food is arranged on a small altar before the statue. The high priest performs the final ritual, the opening of the mouth, touching the statue's lips with a set of sacred instruments, magically enabling it to consume the meal. He then seals the shrine, leaving the god to enjoy his breakfast in peace. The first and most important duty of the day is complete. You have successfully woken, bathed, dressed, and fed a block of gilded wood. And in doing so, you have helped ensure that the sun will continue to rise, and the universe will not collapse into chaos. You leave the sanctuary, the shrine sealed behind you, and proceed to the next and arguably most important phase of the daily ritual, the management of the leftovers. The god, being a divine entity, has consumed the spiritual essence of the food offering. He has no need for the physical bread, meat, and beer. This physical remainder, however, is not wasted. It undergoes a miraculous transformation in a ritual known as the reversion of offerings. It is no longer a divine meal. It is now considered blessed surplus, and it becomes the salary for the entire temple staff. You and the other junior priests carry the trays of food from the sanctuary to a series of secondary chapels dedicated to lesser deities and the spirits of former pharaohs. The meal is offered to them in a kind of divine trickle-down economics. After they have had their spiritual share, the food is taken a final time to the great refectory of the priests. Here, the blessed food is divided among the temple staff, according to a strict and meticulously recorded hierarchy. The high priest receives the choicest cuts of meat and the finest wine. The senior priests get a substantial share. And you, a humble Wab priest, receive a daily ration of bread and beer, and perhaps a handful of onions or some figs. This is the economic engine that drives the entire temple system. The priests do not earn a salary in coin. Coinage has not yet been invented. They are paid in food, cloth, and other goods, all of which originate as offerings to the god. It is a brilliant, self-sustaining system. The vast agricultural estates owned by the temple produce the grain and livestock, which are offered to the god, which then revert back to the priests as payment for their service in managing the estates. It's the world's most successful and long-running catering business, with a single, silent, and very well-fed client. Your midday meal, eaten in the communal hall with the other priests, is therefore a sacred act in itself. You're not just eating lunch, you are partaking in a divine feast, consuming the very same food that was on the god's own table just an hour before. This reality binds you and the other priests together in a community of shared privilege. While the common farmer outside the temple walls might be struggling with a meager harvest, you are guaranteed a daily supply of the finest food in Egypt. You are part of a closed, powerful, and very well compensated system. You have chosen a life of purity and service, and in return, the god provides. And the god, it turns out, has excellent taste. With the morning rituals complete, your afternoon is dedicated to the less glamorous but equally vital work of managing the temple's vast economic empire. You report not to a chapel but to an office, a dusty, sun-drenched chamber in the administrative section of the temple complex, known as the House of Life. Here the air smells not of incense, but of old papyrus and dried ink. This is the bureaucratic heart of the temple, and you are one of its many cogs. Your superior, a senior lector priest, hands you a stack of papyrus scrolls. Your task for the day is to assist in the annual audit of the temple's granaries. The Temple of Amun-Ra is not just a religious institution. It is the largest landowner in all of Egypt, more powerful and wealthy than even the pharaoh in some respects. It owns immense tracts of fertile farmland up and down the Nile, entire villages of tenant farmers, vast herds of cattle, fleets of trading ships that sail to the Levant and Nubia, and workshops that produce everything from linen to furniture. All of this wealth must be managed, catalogued, and taxed. And that is your job. You are an accountant for the gods. You spend hours sitting cross-legged on the floor, painstakingly reviewing the records. A team of temple scribes has just returned from a tour of the southern estates. Their scrolls detail the exact amount of barley, emmer wheat, and flax harvested. They record the number of calves born to the temple's herds, the number of jars of honey collected from the temple's apiaries. Your job is to cross-reference these figures with the records from the previous year, noting any discrepancies. You must calculate the portion that is owed to the pharaoh's tax collectors, the portion that must be stored as seed for the next planting, and the vast remainder that flows into the temple's own storehouses to be used for offerings and salaries. It is detailed, mind-numbing work. The numbers swim before your eyes. You are no longer dealing with the divine. You are dealing with bushels, cubits, and weights. You learn that the temple operates a sophisticated system of loans. It lends seed grain to farmers at the beginning of the planting season and expects repayment with substantial interest after the harvest. A poor harvest can mean ruin for a farmer who may be forced to sell his land, often to the temple, to cover his debt. You realize that the temple's immense piety is matched only by its shrewd business acumen. It is a spiritual superpower with the heart of a predatory lending agency. You see reports from the temple's mining expeditions into the eastern desert detailing the amount of gold and turquoise extracted. You review the manifests of ships returning from Phoenicia, their holds filled with cedar wood and fine oils, all traded for the temple's surplus grain. The god Amun-Ra is not just the king of the gods. He is a titan of industry, a divine oligarch whose earthly portfolio you are now helping to manage. This is the secret reality of your holy calling. You are a keeper of sacred mysteries, yes, but you are also a mid-level manager in a sprawling multinational corporation whose CEO happens to be a falcon-headed deity. Today is a day of great excitement and even greater labour. It is the beautiful Feast of the Valley, one of the most important religious festivals of the Theban year. This is not a ritual that takes place in the dark, hidden sanctuary of the temple. This is a grand public spectacle, a piece of religious theatre designed to awe the masses and reaffirm the connection between the gods, the pharaoh, and the people. And you are one of the stagehands. The day begins with a frenzy of activity. The cult statue of Amun-Ra, who normally never leaves his shrine, is to be taken on a journey. He will travel from his great temple at Karnak across the river Nile to visit the mortuary temples of the deceased pharaohs on the west bank. But a god cannot simply walk. He must travel in style. The statue is placed within a magnificent portable shrine, which is then mounted on a ceremonial boat, a bark. This is not a real boat, but a heavy, gilded, wooden structure, designed to be carried on the shoulders of the priests. And you are one of the 30 priests assigned to be a divine bearer. Lifting the bark is a back-breaking effort. It is incredibly heavy, a solid construction of cedar wood covered in sheets of pure gold. You and the other priests strain under the weight, your muscles screaming in protest. You must move with a slow, synchronized, gliding step to give the impression that the boat is floating effortlessly through the streets. A great procession forms. At the head are priests wafting incense, and musicians playing sistrums, lutes, and harps. Then comes your team, carrying the god himself, hidden from public view within his shrine. Behind you follow the highest ranking priests, the vizier, and sometimes the pharaoh himself. The streets are packed with the entire population of Thebes. They line the route, cheering, singing, and laying down offerings of flowers and food in the path of the god. This is the one time of year they get to be in the close proximity of their city's great deity. The noise is a deafening, joyous roar, but you hear none of it. All your focus is on the weight on your shoulders, on keeping in step with the man in front of you, on not stumbling. A dropped god is considered a very, very bad omen, and likely the end of your career. It's the most stressful parade in the world, a divine-level rose parade float with catastrophic consequences for failure. You carry the god down to the riverbank, where his great ceremonial ship, the Ziggurat, is waiting. The portable bark is loaded onto this much larger, real vessel for the journey across the Nile. The crossing is a magnificent sight, a flotilla of boats accompanying the god's ship, the sun glinting off its golden decorations. Once on the west bank, the process is repeated. You lift the heavy bark again and carry it on a long procession to the temple of Hatshepsut at Deir el-Bahri. The festival is a day of public joy and divine communion, but for you, it is a marathon of heavy lifting, a grueling physical ordeal performed in the name of faith and tradition. Not all of your duties involve such heavy lifting. Sometimes your work requires a more subtle touch. The temple is not just a place of worship, it is a place of consultation. People from all walks of life, from farmers to generals, come to the temple to ask the god for guidance. They want to know if it is a good time to plant their crops, if their business venture will succeed, if their wife will recover from her illness. And the god provides an answer. This is the oracle, and you have been assigned to assist in its operation. The petitioner, having made a suitable donation, presents his written question to the senior priests. The question is usually phrased as a yes or no proposition. For example, will my son return safely from the war in Nubia? The question is then presented to the god during a procession, like the one you just participated in. As the priests carry the heavy bark through the temple courtyard, the senior priest will read the question aloud. The god then gives his answer. The great golden bark will either dip forward, indicating yes, or backwards, indicating no. It is a clear, unambiguous, and divine sign. Except, of course, it is not. You, as one of the priests hidden from view, carrying the bark, know the secret. The movement of the boat is not a divine miracle. It is a result of careful, coordinated effort. The senior priests at the front and back of the bark subtly direct the motion, pushing or pulling at just the right moment to make the great boat dip in the desired direction. You are part of a sacred conspiracy, a holy puppet master pulling the strings of the divine. The decision on how the god will answer is made beforehand, in private, by the high-ranking priests. Their decision is based on a complex mixture of genuine piety, political expediency, and common sense. If a general, favoured by the pharaoh, asks if his campaign will be successful, the god will almost certainly say yes. It is a divine vote of confidence that ensures the temple remains in the pharaoh's good graces. If a farmer asks about his harvest and the priests know that the Nile flood is predicted to be a good one, the god will again assent. Sometimes the answer seems to be genuinely aimed at providing comfort or justice. It is a system that is part genuine belief, part political theatre, and part ancient opinion polling. You learn that the will of the god is a flexible and surprisingly practical thing. It is not a system designed to deceive, not in your eyes. It is a way of using the unassailable authority of the god to provide guidance, maintain social order, and reinforce the temple's own power. You do not feel like a fraud. You feel like a skilled practitioner of a necessary art. You are helping the god to communicate in a way that the simple, uneducated masses can understand. You are an instrument of divine will, even if that will sometimes need a little human assistance to express itself clearly. Years pass. Through diligence, piety, and the occasional well-placed bribe, you have risen through the temple hierarchy. You are no longer a junior Wab priest tasked with shaving and carrying. You are now a lector priest, a kerheb. This is a position of great prestige and responsibility. You are a keeper and reader of the sacred texts. Your days are no longer filled with physical labour, but with the intellectual and magical work that underpins all of temple life. Your primary duty is to read the sacred incantations during the temple rituals. Your voice, trained for years, must be perfect in its tone and rhythm. You are the one who recites the hymns that wake the god, the spells that protect the temple from evil forces, and the magical formulas that transform simple bread and beer into divine offerings. A single misspoken word, a single incorrect syllable, could break the spell and render the entire ritual powerless. The pressure is immense. You are not just reading, you are weaving the very fabric of cosmic order with your voice. You are also a master of the sacred books kept in the House of Life. This library contains not just religious texts, but works on medicine, astronomy, mathematics, and magic. You are a scholar, a scientist, and a magician, all rolled into one. A nobleman comes to you, his son afflicted with a mysterious fever. You consult the medical papyri, ancient texts that blend practical remedies with magical incantations. You prescribe a poultice of herbs, but also a series of protective amulets and a spell to be recited to drive out the demon of sickness. In your world, there is no separation between science and magic. They are two sides of the same coin. Because of your knowledge, you are a man of great wealth and privilege. You live in a fine, multi-roomed house within the temple walls, with servants to attend to your needs. Your share of the reverted offerings is substantial. The best cuts of meat, the finest wine, and bolts of high-quality linen. You are exempt from the state's corvée labour, and from most taxes. But this privilege comes at a cost. Your life is a closed and insular one. Your entire world is the temple. Your friends are other priests. Your conversations are about rituals, theology, and temple administration. You are a member of a powerful elite class, but you are profoundly separated from the lives of the ordinary people you are meant to serve. You are a guardian of the cosmic order, but you live in a gilded cage, its bars forged from your own vows of purity and knowledge. You are an old man now. Your hair, once shaved every other day, is now a fine white stubble that you no longer bother with. Your body is frail, but your mind is as sharp as a shard of obsidian. You are the first prophet of Amun, the high priest, the pinnacle of your profession. You no longer manage the god's estate. You are the chairman of the board. You advise the pharaoh himself, your words carrying the weight of the most powerful god in the empire. Your days are now centered on the most sacred and secret of all rituals. On the highest holy days, it is you who enters the sanctuary alone. It is you who performs the final, most intimate rites. You have one last great duty that encapsulates your entire life's work. During the Great Opet Festival, you will perform the role of the god himself. You will wear the ceremonial mask of Amun, a magnificent creation of gold and lapis, with its two towering plumes. In that moment, you are not just a priest representing the god. You become the god. Your body becomes his vessel on earth. As you put on the heavy, divine mask, you look out through its narrow eye slits. You see the sea of adoring faces in the courtyard, their expressions filled with an awe and a faith that is absolute. They see a god. You, however, know the reality. You are a man who has spent a lifetime in service to this idea. You have performed the rituals, managed the finances, interpreted the omens, and perpetuated the sacred theatre. Your life has been a strange paradox. You have lived closer to the god than any other man. Yet you are also the one most aware of the human machinery that makes his worship possible. The Egyptian priest was not a mystic sitting in a cave. He was a professional, an administrator, a scholar, and a key player in the political and economic life of the nation. His existence was a constant, delicate balance between profound faith and pragmatic management. He was the guardian of a cosmic order that required meticulous attention to detail, from the shaving of his own body to the accounting of 1,000,000 bushels of grain. He was the man who knew that the gods, in their infinite majesty, still needed their beds changed, their meals served on time, and their vast earthly estates managed with an eye for profit. And in his dutiful lifelong service, he ensured that the machinery of heaven and its powerful reflection on earth continued to run smoothly for 3,000 years.